Hello, everybody. Welcome to House Arrest with Chris and Tamara. I feel like I've been gone forever.
Yeah, we kind of held the show together, though, decently, but we missed you.
Of course you did. I had absolutely no doubts. Great shows, really great shows. Michelle Wharton, what a crazy story.
I was impressed with that. Yeah, listening to her story and being able to tell that story was needed, and I'd encourage everybody to go back and listen to last week's episode if you can. That turned out really well. Let me mute my phone here. I thought I did that.
No problem.
How was your house arrest last couple of weeks? You were a busy girl.
I was a busy girl. We were all over Alberta, which was really, really nice for me, obviously, because I feel like I've been an Eastern Canadian for the last 4 years. So to be able to go around, my home province finally, and it's been really nice. It's been really busy, but really nice. We're just going to get started next week on the second book. So that's also going to keep me busy. And yeah, so it's good.
Nice.
Got no complaints. I think I'm busier on house arrest than I was before we were sentenced, honestly.
I feel it. I woke up this morning to a half-assed blizzard this morning and at home here, and I ran extra late last night to get home, and I was going to unload this morning, but I thought just because of the 4 inches of snow or whatever was coming, we rushed last night and yesterday, and we got the load of sand delivered to a customer in home here, and put the truck in the shop last night late, and I really been in the house working on home improvements and a little bit of projects here and there, and yeah, my construction fingers are on today, so I've been working with lumber all day. I expect my hands to be dried right out, and it's been kind of good.
No doubt. Well, it's still snowing here. It's been snowing here all day, like wet, heavy snow.
I watched the system on radar.
From Quebec. Sorry, go ahead.
I was watching the system on the radar all day, and I thought it's going to miss us. So we kind of got it, and then it kind of hit south of where the farm is here, and it's bright and decent out right now. But eastern Saskatchewan's a mess right now, and Highway number 1 and Highway number 4 around Swift Current were closed this morning. So
wow,
it was a house day. Just tinker inside and get some projects done.
Mm-hmm.
And I will leave on taking off on Saturday morning, and I'm going to run down to Kansas for a forage harvester for a customer of mine. So Saturday, Sunday, be loading on Monday, and then working my way home. Should be a decent run, hopefully.
Good. Well, I'm just actually working on getting some dates together to go cover some more of the Stay Free Alberta events and some of the Saskatchewan prosperity events in Saskatchewan. Those are turning out really, really well. They're getting really great turnouts, even in these tiny little towns in Saskatchewan. So it's going to be interesting to see how that grows out there. But they're busy. All these guys are really, really busy.
Yep. Yeah, there's 2 organizations in Saskatchewan right now, Prairie Rising out of Regina, Troy and Stephanie, and there's also Saskatchewan Prosperity. Brad Williams is running around the province right now, and they're doing speaking. I encourage everybody to go ask the questions and just become informed on what your rights are as a Canadian citizen, and if you're happy with the direction of the country right now. And I think after, the NDP leader or the NDP personnel crossed the floor a few days ago, giving the Liberals just another step. Are they at a majority now? Is that true?
Well, they're only 2 seats away from a majority, but they've called a by-election in 3 ridings out east, and 2 of them are basically a sure thing. So, this is he's stealing a majority government is what he's doing, and it's pretty unsettling. It's almost overwhelming. I don't know about you, but I find it almost overwhelming to even go on social media anymore, because every day it's just like there's more and more craziness between all these censorship bills that they're trying to ram through the House, the floor crossers, all these decisions that are unilaterally being made without consulting Canadians or asking what they think. I mean, it is sometimes almost overwhelming that I just want to shut my phone off and not look at it for days.
Well, I think I speak for both of us and a lot of people when I say in February 2022, we've seen this whole country come together and kind of surround themselves around the flag. But in the last number of years, I've also seen we've been run through the mill by Ottawa, Tamara and I and others, and it's disgusting. And the behavior out of the East, especially Ottawa, and I'm not saying Eastern Canada is any different than Western, but we feel alienated out here. We feel like our voices are not being heard by Ottawa. And even though we vote the way we want, our voices are silenced by, downtown Toronto and downtown Montreal. And it's just a different mentality where there's different alignments between, the prairies and major cities in this province or country. And we feel like we don't have a voice, and we're frustrated and we're angry, and we want options. And right now we don't have many options, so we're seeking those options. So just we'll see where it goes and stand up.
Well, I agree. And, I don't know if you watched Travis Don Raj's testimony on the standing committee for Canadian Heritage the other day. I was watching it because I was covering it for work. So imagine my surprise when all of a sudden the Freedom Convoy and my name came up in that. Exactly. And first of all, I was shocked. I was shocked just at well, I wasn't shocked. I mean, it's disappointing, David Cochrane's attitude, but it's not shocking. I think we all know how they feel about us. But it's indicative of a larger problem of elitism, where they think, David Cochrane clearly thinks if you live in a trailer or a mobile home that you are invaluable and should be dismissed and shouldn't have a voice. Yeah. And they're doing the same thing to Travis Don Raj right now. If you saw social media today, they're trying to cancel him. They're trying to smear him. It's the same playbook over and over again that they've done to us and so many other Canadians that are really just trying to shed light on some serious problems that we have in this country.
It just shows just how ignorant some of these people in higher positions within the media in this country or government are towards working class Canadians. And who gives a crap where you live? You could live in a tent, and a lot of Canadians are living in a tent right now because of the economy right now in this country. But whether you live in a trailer or a house or a mansion, there shouldn't be that stereotype put out there, especially by what an ass. I watch Rosemary Barton every now and then because I want to see what they're saying in the slander and what direction this country's going because of what the media is doing. But I watch it for pure education, I guess, to see where the left is going in this country. So they sure as heck don't talk conservative. It's all liberal talking points, government.
Well, exactly. And as Travis testified, there's actually gatekeeping happening there where conservative voices are not even allowed. He wasn't even allowed to phone some conservatives to ask if he could come on their show. So, especially because we're paying for that. If Canadians are paying for the CBC, then we should have a fair and balanced. Now, the CBC has always been left-leaning. And I lived in rural Saskatchewan growing up in some places where the CBC was the only station that we had. Mm-hmm. All we could watch was the CBC. And even back then, it was fairly left-leaning, but they still at least, still gave conservatives a voice and still tried to at least have the appearance of being fair and balanced. I mean, they've thrown that completely right out the window. They don't even care anymore. And what's ironic is that here are the very two people that are, again, funded by the taxpayers that sit in front of their audiences day in and day out and speak at them, not with them. They speak at them. They lecture them on being tolerant, on being inclusive, on not bullying. And the fact of the matter is that they're the ones that are guilty of behaving like that more than anyone.
100%. As I said, the similarities, and I hate to keep bringing this up, but 1930s Germany and Canada right now, where the government owns the propaganda, which is the media, and they feed that narrative into the households of everyone. And they do that because the government pays CBC and they control the narrative. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, but if you don't know your history, you're bound to repeat it. And I would say we're close to that right now.
Yeah, I think so too. It's very concerning anyways. Like I said, it's almost overwhelming some days where I just don't even want to open up my phone. I think I've got all of my internet glitches sorted out. I'm really hoping I do. I think I've got my microphone problem sorted out. So hopefully the audience can let me know if I'm coming through more clearly. I've got some different setups here, so hopefully that doesn't. Let's just have a quick peek who's joining us. I saw somebody in here from Quebec. Bonjour, bienvenue.
Where's everybody at? One thing I want to bring up, Zippy and I are part of the SPCA, or local SPCA SPCA fundraiser for jail and bail. How fitting is it that I'm under house arrest right now, and I am now taking part in a fundraiser for jail and bail for our local SPCA. I encourage everybody to go help out. What the heck is the email on it? Let me figure that out here right now, and I can give all the links on it. Should have had that all set up before, but
yeah, we should. You know what? I can maybe send that to Tasha and she can post it in the back because the picture is really cute with Zippy and his balaclava. Hang on.
Zippy. Yes, we have. So if anybody can go to spcaswiftcurrent.com/events. There's a barcode here that'll take you right there. Zippy has posted bail today, so thank you very much, everyone. Yeah. He could reoffend though. I don't know. So
I don't know if you can see that. I don't know if you can see that or not, but he did make his bail today. The jail and bail. That's
one of our groomers there. That every time she cut his hair, she'd take a photo of him like that. I've got him in a bath, like a bath cap, those plastic things. I've got him as a burglar. I've got him, on a sunny beach, driving a car. You name it. Zippy has been. He wasn't very happy this week. I left him at home because I didn't want to miss my appointment for his grooming appointment. He was getting pretty shaggy. So,
oh gosh,
he got taken in yesterday, and when I showed up last night at 11 o'clock, he was pretty excited to see me when I opened the door. Almost mad at me because I'd left him at home, but.
Yeah. Well, Bella's going to get groomed this Saturday too. Finally, she hasn't been groomed since we started, and me neither. As you can see, I'm running out of ways to, creatively hide my roots. So
I just don't have any hair left.
We're both going to get groomed this weekend. So I've got some necessities of lifetime, which I'm actually going to take this weekend. So
I don't mean to look at my phone, but I'm going to send some of the stuff into Tasha right now so she can.
Yeah, do that. Yeah, get it up. It's really cute. And the Swift Current SPCA jail and bail has been going on for as long as I can remember, like ever since I was a little kid. So I think that's a great fundraiser, and especially something that's so close to your heart. I mean, you're such a huge supporter of the SPCA. It's such a great fit, Chris.
There is a dog in the SPCA in Swift Current right now. His name is Chase, and he's a husky. And if somebody doesn't go get this damn dog from the SPCA, I'm going to have 3 big dogs in my breezeway here, and I only have 2 pillows. I was working in my sunroom today trying to put flooring in it. I've got Charlie laid out in one part of there, and Zeke's on one of the chairs, and Zip's on another chair, and I'm stepping over dogs, so I don't know if I have room for another one. But please, somebody go get Chase. He's gorgeous. I think somebody's got him on a test drive right now, so I'm hoping things work out for him. He's been there for a little while, and I can't stand that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they deserve families. They deserve families for sure. So, okay, well, I don't know. Yeah, did you get that sent off?
Yeah, I'm just forwarding it off right now, so.
Let's see. Hello from your neighbors to the south, Fargo, North Dakota. Welcome, Jean. Thank you so much for joining us from North Dakota. We love our American friends and neighbors.
It's amazing. I'm trucking in the
Don't believe what you see on TV.
The amount of people that are waving and honking when I'm trucking in the U.S. is, I got to run down to Kansas for this load on Monday. And so the trailer manufacturing we get our stuff from is in Marysville, Kansas. And I phoned one of my sales guys down there, and he said, make sure you tell me when you're coming. I got some guys down here that follow everything you do, and they want to see Big Red. And he's pretty excited. So we'll make that stop on Monday morning.
Fantastic. Yeah. Oh, Blind River. Wow. That was one of our favorite stops, Chris. Remember that? Blind River. What? Never forget that.
That was where it's the SO and the A&W, right?
Yeah. They had like all the DEF set up out front, and
windshield washer
crowd, like sandwiches, like lunches everywhere. It was Blind River was definitely, all of our stops were good, but I'll definitely never forget that one.
That was awesome. There were so many amazing stops.
Knowing Zippy, he will reoffend. Absolutely. He's a mischief maker, that dog.
When she stopped yesterday to drop him off at the grooming appointment, he looked out the window and realized where he was, and he started shaking. And so Rael got out and tried to grab him. He ran in the back seat, and then she went to the back door. He ran in the front seat, and they did that back. She said she had 3 doors open on the SUV trying to get him out of there, and wherever she went, he ran the other way trying to stay away from her. Finally, he just gave up. Little turkey.
Aw. He's got an attitude, eh? Like he likes what he likes, that dog. Yes.
Very much so.
I just got a question here from Baba Susie. Yes, David is on medical leave. Apparently he went on medical leave 2 weeks ago, probably knowing full well that this testimony and this hearing was coming out. Yes. Welcome, everyone. Reading Thank You Truckers by Donna Lefambois. Yes. Actually, we did have Bern Buchert on already. I think we've had a couple people from her book on, but there's definitely tons more we could have for sure. We will make that happen, Nancy.
And we're
Lee
looking for
from
suggestions.
Nipigon.
If you have an idea of somebody that should be on, just send an email to Tamara. What's the email again?
Oh,
18.
yes. Our email is 18house.arrest. Oh, sorry, Tasha. 18house.arrest@gmail.com. And you can actually send your recommendations for guests, any ideas that you have for the show, comments, hate mail, whatever you want. Go ahead. 18house.arrest.com or at gmail.com.
One of my favorite
well,
one of my favorite pastimes going through Facebook Messenger is go to the request part, and the amount of hate that you get, that people just randomly take time out of their day to tell you, the worst things ever. And I always reply with nicely, did your mother not hug you enough as a child?
No kidding. No kidding.
Oh.
All right. Well, we've had him on the show many, many times. He sits in regularly as a special co-host of ours. He's our good friend. And I was gone for a few weeks, and I thought, well, what a great way to come back than to invite Tom Marazzo to come onto the show. And actually, we can talk about Tom Marazzo. He's been quite busy since the Freedom Convoy. Pardon me. He took a run in politics shortly after the convoy. He's wrote 3 books, and he is working on teaching people how to be emergency preparedness. So it is my great pleasure to bring Tom on, and welcome to the show as our guest, Tom, not a co-host.
Yeah, no, this is great. What's going on here? I got all this fancy stuff on my screen. Okay. Yeah, no, thanks for bringing me back on. It's always a pleasure to come in rap and talk about the crazy things in Canada. Batshit bonkers. Canada doesn't rhyme, but I think it's very fitting. Very fitting. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Upside down clown town.
It is. Yeah, it's been busy. It's been really busy.
You were just down in the States.
Yeah, I've been to. I was in Washington D.C. last week, last Monday and Tuesday for a BGA. It's the Government Blockchain Association conference that Jonathan Bahai, my boss, took me on the work trip with him. That's the second time I've been in D.C. And about a month ago, we were in New York City. I got flown out with Christine Van Geyn. We were talking about the Emergencies Act and the appeals that came out. So there was a group of Americans in New York City that actually wanted to hear from Canada or from Canadians that participated in this and see what was going on. So I was happy to do that. And it was great. I mean, it was an awesome experience to go to New York City. I can tell you my personality does not suit Times Square. It does not suit Times Square. I was good in Central Park, where I could decompress, but Times Square, that's a different beast altogether.
Did you have a chance to visit the Trade Center Memorial? That is something on my bucket list.
I did. Yeah, we went in. I wrote an article about it in my Substack. Not what people would expect in that, but yeah, I had to go. It was a place that I had to go and see for myself. And obviously, as soon as you get there, it brings you back to the day, to the actual 9/11. And then as you're there and you're thinking about that day, it brings you to everything in our lives that have happened since. And I did not, and I'm very clear about this. I did not go to Afghanistan or Iraq. Lots of reasons why I tried, but I didn't. In the end, I'm glad I didn't, to be perfectly honest. I never hurt anybody, and nobody hurt me. And I'm not a psychological casualty from a war, right? So from that point of view, it's a very positive thing that I didn't go. But I will say, I think if I did, my mood and demeanor around being a Canadian citizen would be a lot more dark than sometimes it already is, as a result of what this government has done to the citizens of Canada. And I can only imagine how veterans who fought, risked their lives for this country, how they're feeling right now, living through the Liberal decade of darkness. Another one, so I think I'd probably be a psychological casualty if I actually had to defend this country with, risk my life, risk orphaning my kids, just to be treated like we're treated here in Canada. So,
And there's a lot of veterans that feel that, that feel that way, that feel dismissed. Once again, they feel angry.
yeah,
I text with one regularly from BC. He's a good friend of mine that I met in Powell River, actually a veteran, and he's just disgusted. Like, he just texted me the other day and he said, I can't believe I fought for this country and I was willing to die for this country. It's a sad state.
it is. It really is a sad state. I joined the Army when I was 16 years old because I was technically in my 17th year back in 1990. And so I joined the reserves, and, I finished high school and I went through college. I was in the reserves. And then, I finally re-enrolled, or I didn't have a break in service. I enrolled into the regular force. So, on a Friday you're a reservist, on a Monday you're a regular force guy. And so I joined the regular force in 98, and I finally retired because of an injury in 2015. So I went out medically from the military, but even at that time, I was done. I was done with the politics. And I can only imagine how they're feeling now. I left, I retired, and not long after they started to relax the dress codes and, letting guys grow beards and longer hair. And
Earrings.
Yeah, I absolutely disagree with that. I think that is fundamentally wrong and counter to what, being in a uniform actually stands for and what it means. So yeah, I don't think I could have tolerated the current mindset of the Canadian military. I don't think I
tampons
could.
in the male bathroom kind of got me. Sorry, but
Yeah. And let's be honest. If you're Russia or you're Iran or you're one of these countries right now that doesn't really like Canada, and our troops start showing up on your border, first thing I would do is I would parachute a whole bunch of tampons over the Canadian position. You want to know why? I know that sounds funny, but I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
Because the maintenance of morale is a principle of war.
100%.
And when you demoralize your soldiers, when you embarrass them because your leadership has already embarrassed you, it doesn't make you an effective fighting force that will go that extra mile. You'll do it for your buddies, for your fellow soldiers, but at some point you're not really doing it for the country or for the government. And I don't think anyone ever does it for the government. That's for sure.
Right, exactly.
that's
that's a huge. Sorry, go ahead, Chris.
I was just going to say, in Normandy, I walked those, like the Canadian cemetery in Normandy, and you have a feeling there. You're looking at gravestones for 17, 18-year-old kids that left to fight a war in a foreign country, and they never came home. And if you can't have emotion when you walk through that cemetery, it was so powerful, and you can't help but being, today's conflicts, I would like to think, are different in nature. There's a different battle, and I don't know. What are your thoughts, Tom?
Yeah, you know what? I worked with, at some point throughout my career, I worked with 13 people that got killed in Afghanistan. And so what happens is at 2 p.m. Ontario time, when a soldier is killed overseas, they're repatriated back to Canada, and they typically land at 2 p.m. Ontario time at CFB Trenton. So when the wheels touch down, everybody across the Canadian military is standing at attention for the 2 minutes while that soldier is being repatriated back to Canada. And, I've participated in a bunch of the funerals. It's a difficult thing. I even in training, I've had a soldier of mine was killed. She was a young 21-year-old female. She weighed about 100 pounds. And, she was involved in a LAV-3 rollover, so an armored vehicle rollover on top of a 98-pound soldier, and she had worked for me for almost a year. We did a shuffle of the squadrons, and we were in the field training, and she was in the turret of the vehicle, and it rolled over and it killed her. And so, you're in the field with your soldiers, and, you got to go talk to your soldiers and say, hey, like, one of your colleagues just got killed, and it wasn't in training. Right. So, this stuff it's real. I mean, we do practice with live ammo. And the intensity of Afghanistan made the training a lot more difficult, obviously, and as it should be. But even, the lessons of wartime always get brought up in peacetime. But I question the preparedness of the Canadian soldier today. And I'm not knocking on the soldiers, I'm knocking on the leadership. And I'm talking the senior leadership of the Canadian Forces, not the battalion commanders or the brigade commanders. I'm talking about, the brigadiers and up. These are the people that are going along. And I'm sure there's internal conflict and a lot of resistance with the senior leadership against the government. But the government seems to be getting its way. And it's very unfortunate in my perspective, because we were always told in the military, you are not part of a social engineering or social experiments. That's not your role. Your role is war fighting in the defense of this nation. That's your role. It is the business of violence, and it's the expertise of violence against an opposing military or some sort of a threat. And so when we see what's going on now, it's very disheartening, because let me go back to the earrings and the long hair and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
When you go through basic training, okay, and I've done it twice. I had to do it as a reservist, and then when I joined as an officer, I had to do it again. And I think all civilians should go through basic training, at least go through basic training. I'm not saying I'm for conscription or draft or anything. I'm just saying you'll learn a lot about yourself, and you'll learn a lot about, what is really important and the things in life that we all take for granted when the military will take it away for you. But when we go through basic training, you're stripping down your individuality, and you're building back a team. You're part of a team. Okay, so this is very fundamentally important. So I'll give you a great example. In the beginning days of basic training, you'll have to clean the washrooms for inspections, because every morning there's a room inspection, there's a common area inspection, and everyone goes in, they clean the bathrooms, and it always takes that one guy in the first week to go in there and urinate in one of the clean urinals, right? And that's when everybody loses their mind, because in that context, it's about teamwork. And it is always collective punishment. Okay, so just because you screwed up or you decided to use the urinal, the rest of us are going to pay for it. Okay, and so this is about breaking down your individuality and recognizing that the only way you survive in battle is if you're on the team, if you're part of the team. So when we allow people to relax the dress standard and relax the uniform, what it does is it puts in your mind, I'm not on a team. I'm an individual who wears this uniform. And it's a subtle difference, but it's very, very impactful. And I've always said this. I don't care when you get to the field, if the guys want to go out and wear the most tactical looking gear that they bought at a surplus store. I didn't care, because I wanted my soldiers to feel like they were 8 feet tall and the baddest SOBs, on the planet. That's what I want them to believe. Confidence, because the maintenance of morale is a principle of war. And so if this guy has to have that one little piece of Gucci kit that he wears in the field and it makes him feel invincible, get 2. Right. Yeah. But now when we're in other situations and you want to have your fingernails done or your ears pierced, and that doesn't say to me you're a professional. It doesn't say that you're more about the team. It says you're more about yourself. And the ethos of the military is mission, equipment, men, self. That's it. But we're inverting that by relaxing these standards. So that's
Do you think that's by design? I think that's by design. I mean, it seems to me like everything, and I don't want to be overgeneralize here, but it seems to me like the demoralization of Canadians, not just the military, but Canadians, period, has been sort of the game here for the last few weeks. I mean, that's one thing I really like about covering some of these independence events out here is that, you're back in a room where there's people that feel some hope and some pride again. Because we've just been shamed. I mean, our former prime minister would never even issue an apology unless he could shame Canadians in some way, shape, or form with it. It was never an apology for any mistakes or errors in judgment that he made. It was always to name and shame Canadians for things that we're not responsible for. So it seems like this whole demoralization practice has been going on for quite some time, and it's definitely, especially in the military. I find it funny that I can't remember what the head lady's name there is now that just took over, but there was an article that came out, I think last week, where she was saying that the military is ready to go to war if they're called upon. Like, well, for what? We can't even shoot down a friggin' Chinese balloon, for Pete's sake. Like, what is the Canadian military going to do in a conflict?
Bringing that up, though, Tamara, Tom, give us your opinion, I guess, as a veteran, on what's going on in Iran right now. And is this warranted for someone to go in and finally fix the problem? What are your thoughts?
Oh, wow, that's a really, really big question. And I'm going to try to combine your question and Tamara's question. I would first off say wholeheartedly, there's no way that we're ready for war. We're right. So for the Chief of Defense Staff to come out and make that statement, that's just that's sound bites for the media. That's not living in reality. She knows she's not ready, but she can't come out and announce to her adversaries or to Canadian adversaries that, hey, we can't defend ourselves, right? So she can't come out and make a statement like that. But those who are in, the military have served, they know the truth, that we are in no state to take on a worthy adversary. Okay, we're in a situation where between 10 and 15,000 vacancies in the regular force military. Okay, if you want to put it into a really into a context that you can kind of measure, the New York City Police Department has about 35,000 police officers. Canadian forces could not even come close to putting half of that as combat troops. Like, we're talking infantry, armor, artillery, and engineers. We couldn't put that into the field. We couldn't put half of that into the field effectively. Okay, so our numbers are horrific right now. Recruiting is down. People are leaving, one, because the maintenance of morale has not been maintained, and people are embarrassed. They know that they're not on a winning team. They're not hard chargers. You look at a guy like Dallas Alexander, was a JTF2 sniper, who said, why am I losing range time and skill time and training time to go sit in on a DEI lecture? I'm a tier 1, top of the food chain soldier in Canada, and why am I going to DEI lectures? Like, I should be going to lectures that make me do my job better, not on DEI hiring. Okay, so I'm sorry, but it's fundamentally this is where we're not supposed to be doing social engineering experiments on members of the military. You're only supposed to be there to learn how to rapidly apply violence to your enemy. I mean, in warfare, we don't do a tie. Okay, it's overwhelming force. We're not interested in breaking even. We're interested in dominating in every way possible. And if you look at Canada's wartime record, even up to Afghanistan, we've always punched so far above our weight class.
Yep.
But I don't think we're there anymore. I think we've dropped down to several weight classes, unfortunately. And who's going to be paying for that? And let's not forget, in World War I and II, Canada did have conscription. It's not widely known, but Canada did have conscription. They sent, when they ran out of volunteers, they had to send replacements. Yeah. Now, Quebec had a big issue with this. They didn't like it. They didn't want it. And I understand the reasons, but that doesn't, ignore the fact that Canada drafted young men to go fight in World War I and II. And so what's going to happen if we get into it with China, Russia, if the Middle East does evolve into something bigger? So to go to your question, Chris, I am trying to watch that very closely. I'm not watching it from a Canadian military get involved perspective. I don't think we're anywhere near that, to be honest. I'm getting a lot of conflicting reports whether or not even America is going to put boots on the ground. And I'm seeing the flip-flopping of Carney on his original support for Trump. It's now waning. He's not supporting what the Americans are doing. I don't even think the Americans at this point are supporting what Israel has done. So it's too early to tell really what's going on, what's truth, and it's the most heavily censored war other than Ukraine. So I don't really, I can't really get a good handle on it. And again, at the end of the day, what's the outcome for Canada? What is within Canada's national interest to risk the lives of Canadian young men and women to go and engage in that fight in the Middle East, especially when we can just go get our bloody oil from Alberta? So what's the point? What's the point?
With the amount of drones and bombs and fighter jets and that sort of stuff, I hope and I pray it doesn't wind up with boots on the ground. And so far they're leaning like that. I haven't heard that that's even an option yet. What I've heard, they were just going to eliminate the threat, devastate the Iranian government and the regime, and then let Iran rebuild it up. And if that's the case, I hope things go good, and I hope there's no more lives taken. But we can't allow these people to have nuclear weapons, and they're going to use them if they acquire them. And I've seen a video the other day. It's been a problem with U.S. presidents for the last 47 years, is it? And so far, Trump's the only one that's been able to take it head to head. So I hope
I don't see, that's the thing. I don't have enough information because you can't get enough information to really validate a lot of those claims. So, I retired from the Army in 2015. And then, 5 weeks later, I was sitting in class. My new peer group were a bunch of 17-year-olds living at home with their parents, right? So I went back, did a degree in software. And, I was in North York in Toronto, and I met a lot of my teachers were Persian. They never said Iranian, always Persian, right? Amazing, kindest people. A lot of, fellow students, a lot of the teachers, amazing, great people. And when I started teaching at Georgian College, I worked with some Persians as well. Amazing people. They don't like their government, right? I get that. I love Canadians, clearly, and Americans, but I'm not a big fan of the governments. I have no issues with Jewish people in any way, but I certainly don't like the Israeli government. And I haven't for a long time. And they've made it clear as to why I disdain what they've been doing over the last couple of years. Okay, so we have to be precise with the language, right? Like, it's not about the people, it's about the governments of those people. And I say this all the time. The greatest mass murderers in human history have always been the governments of the very people that they murdered. And that is a fact, right? And so there's no love lost with losing the Iranian government and the Ayatollah. But who are the ones who ultimately suffer for this? It's always the people, right?
And
always
who's going to replace them? That's the other thing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
people are fighting men, U.S., Canada, everywhere.
Yeah. Anyway, it's a big question. It's a really big question. But my concerns right now is not necessarily, Canada deploying and joining in a kinetic war in the Persian Gulf area or to Ukraine, although we do have a full brigade in Lithuania, Latvia. We have a lot of Canadian soldiers. They've been there for years. Kind of the same relationship as when Canada had LAR and Baden-Baden in Germany during the Cold War. We've now got a full brigade in Lithuania and Latvia because of the, what's going on in Ukraine and Russia.
Right.
And I've got a lot of opinions about that most of your viewers are not going to agree with, but that's okay. We'll save it for a different day. But ultimately for me, what it comes down to is I've talked about these three different circles before: circle of control, circle of influence, and circle of interest. Okay, circle of interest is why every day I watch Canadian Prepper, or I watch some YouTube channels. That's just my circle of interest. I can't do a thing about it. None of those people are taking my calls. They don't care what Tom Marazzo's opinion are, but I'm just keeping tabs on it. Okay. But what I can control and what I can influence, that's things like, do I have fuel? Do I have backup electricity? Do I have backup food? Do I have clean water? Do I have, am I taking care of those everyday things that I can control and can influence? And so that's where I spend 80% of my time, which a lot of people, they go down the rabbit holes and they spend 80% of their time inside the circle of interest and not enough on their day-to-day lives. What can I do today? What do I have control over? I live in Brampton, Ontario. Okay. I am only literally less than a kilometer away, line of sight, to the big 55-foot tall Hunaman statue. I walk my dog there all the time. Right. You can go on social media and be baited by all of this perception, all of this anger, and all of these things about, different immigration problems and all that. But when you sit down and look at it in your everyday life, is it actually impacting you? Does it impact what I can control and what I can influence? And the answer is no. Right. So I kind of like to change my perspective and focus on the important things. And so this is where, we'll get into it. I hope we'll talk about the book and why I wrote it, but what it is about. And it's about maintaining the circle of control and circle of influence, and how I can protect my friends, my family, my community, or people that are in my area. That's what I'm interested in. There's nothing I can do. Tucker Carlson doesn't take my calls. Neither does Donald Trump or Bibi. Like nobody takes my calls. I'm not offended. That's okay.
I take your calls, Tom. Now that I can, now that I'm allowed to.
Now that you can, yeah.
Well, let's get into your book, but let's go back first to your first book. So after the Freedom Convoy, you became we don't have to get into your political run, but you got involved in politics.
Yeah.
And I think at the same time, the People's Emergencies Act. So let's just talk a few minutes about the People's Emergencies Act. And then you have a second book, which is basically a collection of writings from your Substack account. And then what got you into the prepping part of it?
Yeah, so great story. So believe it or not, back in 2017, I actually had a Shopify store, and I was selling, bug out bags and the whole bit, really good gear, emergency gear. The difference is, like, I don't ever approach this from a perspective of fear. I don't do fear mongering. I do caution, but I don't do the fear. Nobody buys insurance because they're terrified or they're scared. They buy it because, one, in some cases it's the law, but two, because it's just necessary. It's something in life you have to do. Okay. So I started this, Shopify store. I was drop shipping. I was selling products that I thought were good products that people could use for their emergency planning. And so fast forward, COVID hits, and I'm Mr. Gray Man. I did not ever come out of the shadows, but I was in one little small chat group on Telegram, and the people in the group are really, really freaking out. And so I said, look, I'm going to do a 2-hour video call with you, with the whole group, and we're going to talk about how to properly do planning. Okay. And right now, if you go on the website, you can download that chapter. It's called it's hasty planning. Like, it's when you don't have a lot of time and you got to do a good solid plan and you have to analyze the situation properly. So I did that online training with this group of people. And because people were freaking out and they didn't know what to do. And some of them were like, can you just do me a plan? I'm like, no, I can't, but I can show you how to do it for yourself. It's the whole teach me to fish kind of mentality. Right. And so, I lose my job as a teacher in a college, Georgian college, in Barrie, just in case anyone's ever thinking about going there. You'll know who they, what they're really like. And they fired 25 of us. So anyway, I got fired from that. A couple months later, moved, end up at the convoy, and had enough content from you good folks to put into a book. And but I did a few months after the convoy, I ran as a candidate with the Ontario Party. Derek Sloan is the leader of the party. I ran in the Peterborough riding to become an MPP. I got exactly 1,973 votes. I know that because that's the year I was born. And so, yeah, that's how many votes I got. I clearly got a good solid ass whooping. But that's okay. And I've stayed on with the party. I'm currently the interim president of the party, but I didn't run in the last election. So I'm still involved, like, politically, from more on the administrative side. But I don't think it's in me to ever run again. I don't want to be a politician. I have better things to do with my life than go rip off taxpayers. I say that jokingly. I do say that jokingly. I mean, I'm of the opinion that the system is like the Matrix. It protects itself at all cost. It doesn't matter if you're Neo or not. The system is going to protect itself, right? And so I kind of see that in the political spectrum quite a bit. So yeah, anyway, I do that, but I write a lot, and I discovered when I wrote the first book that I really do like to write. I enjoyed it. So I started writing a bunch of long format stuff on Twitter, and Keith Wilson kept giving me crap, saying, "It's Twitter, man. Nobody's going to read that." So I took all my good long ones and I moved them over to Substack, and I had enough for a book. So Joanna said to me, like, "Why don't you put all your Substack articles into a book?" And which is what I did. And it's funny because somebody bought the book today, which I never even advertise it, but it's actually called The Upstream Effect. Sorry, I got my blur on.
Yeah, it's okay. Just a little bit of blur. Yep, the Upstream Effect.
Yeah, The Upstream Effect, how politics capture culture and how we take it back. So that's just a series of my Substacks. And then, I put that out. Trish Wood actually wrote the foreword for that one. And I really did appreciate her taking the time to do that. And so that's what it is. It's a collection of articles that I've written for my Substack. I put them in. I've already got enough for a fourth book just from my Substacks alone.
Wow. Right.
Which
and a huge shout out to Trish Wood, who's been Trish Wood has been a friend of the convoy since like the very beginning, since before we even left, So she's so I'm glad she did that for you.
Yes.
What an honor.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I got contacted by a really good friend of mine. He was actually the very first Krav Maga instructor I had when I was posted to London, and we become good friends. We've stayed in touch for, God, I think the 13 years since I've left London. We talked regularly, and he had a group of people up in Northern Ontario that wanted to do some training. Military training, but the sort of scope of what they wanted to do was left wide open. And I said, okay, I'm not training any army skills with guns and all that kind of stuff. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up for a weekend and I'm going to train everyone on how to plan, how to effectively plan. Now, we did do an overnighter. We did some military skills, and it was good. Like I enjoyed my time. I know the feedback was amazing. I was very pleased with how the weekend went. And so what I taught in the planning side was one little tiny piece of the bigger picture. And that's the piece that I'm actually giving away in my, on my website for free on the landing page. And, that's what the weekend training was, but it's only like the tip of the iceberg. So I thought, it's time to take the operational planning process that I was taught by the military. And by the way, David Redman he wrote the preface to this book, and David is trained to the same level as I am trained. But David was retired as a lieutenant colonel. And then when he retired, he went in and started working for Emergency Management Alberta, in the anti-terrorism division right after 9/11. But it didn't take long before he actually became the head of Emergency Management Alberta. And so David became very vocal during the pandemic. I would say within the first few months of the pandemic, saying, what in the hell is going on? This is not what we were supposed to do. This was never the plan. We have plans for this. And he said, he's written a letter to the government. He's written a letter to every emergency management office in Canada, and all, and sent them the letter saying, what the hell are you doing? You know, the WHO back in 2014 even said, you don't mask, you don't social distance, you don't shut your economy down, you don't do all these bloody stupid things that every government in the world did. And it was the WHO that updated all their plans because they had a break in 2014. And so everybody updated it. Yeah. Go ahead.
That was one of the big tells, was that, you know, everyone, all agencies and provinces, organizations had their own emergency preparedness plans for a pandemic, and they all just got completely tossed out the window. And I think I remember Danny Bulford, you know, that was sort of one of the things that really opened his eyes right away too, is, you know, why do we have all these plans in place? Why are we throwing them all out the window and, you know, making up new plans as we go?
Well, and here's the really terrible thing. So in 2008 to 10, I was posted to the Army's headquarters in Toronto, and in a domestic emergency, that headquarters shifts from being the Army headquarters to the Joint Task Force. So there, you know, if there was a snowstorm or ice storm, the Army commander, who is a brigadier general, would take command of all naval and air force as well as Army assets in Ontario. Okay, for a domestic emergency like a snowstorm, like what we had in the 90s. And I participated in that as a reservist in the 90s. And so, you know, every September, the headquarters will do their annual domestic ops exercise. So the whole entire headquarters gets exercised. We get role players, we get actors, you know, we get media, we get all of it. And I was on the commander's assessment team. So my job would have been to deploy to the danger or to the emergency area and look at it from an engineer point of view and report back to my boss in Toronto on what I'm finding on the ground. So I was the forward deployed commander's assessment team engineer rep. And so you know, every morning we have the morning brief with the general, and I sat beside the EMO rep, the Emergency Management Ontario rep. Okay, I sat beside this guy in the general's morning briefing every day. And he himself was a retired Air Force brigadier general. Okay, so what's important to understand is every province and territory has one of these organizations, and all of them use the same operational planning process that we use in the Army. Why? Because we all have to integrate in a real life event, and half the people that come out of the military go in, or, you know, half of the EMO offices, they're all ex-military anyway. So we all speak the same language. Now, in 2010, when you had the G8, G20 summit, Emergency Management Ontario was an integral part of that planning process. You know, so we all integrated very, very seamlessly into it. And I would almost argue that they were better at the process than we were, because they don't have to do war fighting in theirs, right? We use the same process for war fighting, domestic ops, and a whole bunch of other things. Anyway, so what happened was, I was kind of shocked that, so we have a thing in Ontario, it's called Operation Laser. And it's Ontario's contingency plan for the military if there's a pandemic or an endemic. And I know this because every September I had to read it, review it, put notes on it, and sign off that I had done all that stuff so that the plan could be updated. You know, at one of many, many people to have to review it and be aware of it. But it wasn't just I was going to say plandemics, but I guess it wasn't just plandemics. But it was like what's the contingency plan for an ice storm or a snowstorm or a flood or whatever, forest fires. So we have all these contingency plans that we have to review, right? So very long story I've given the audience, and I apologize for that. But this was the genesis of the book, because we've seen natural disaster after natural disaster happen in both Canada, the United States, especially the US, where FEMA has done nothing to help people. They've been a bigger hindrance than any other organization in many cases, not all. And our organizations, I haven't heard anything out of them in forever. Okay. In emergency management, Ontario was nowhere to be found during the pandemic. Okay. And so to go by why this is so important, why this is fundamentally screwed up. And I want you to imagine a wheel, like a 10-speed wheel with a hub in the middle and a bunch of spokes. Okay. The hub in the middle in a natural disaster or an emergency or a public emergency, the hub in the middle is your emergency management organization. They're the hub in the middle, and they're the direct interface between the government decision makers and all of the institutions in society. So every spoke is just one institution in society: medical, police, banking, your faith, like religion, education. All of those different institutions in society are a spoke. What did they do in every province and territory in Canada? They pulled the hub out, they grabbed the medical spoke, and they shoved that in the middle and said, "You're now the hub of this whole shit show." And what did they do? What did they do? They focused on what they know: medical. Yeah. What does a bureaucrat doctor running a hospital know about the economy or about policing? Nothing. And so what I've done is I said, okay, you know what? I've got the knowledge, I've got the training, I've got the experience. I am going to give the public the very process that our emergency management organizations and military and some police departments use. I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to civilianize it so that you can now go in proper, effective operational planning process and come up with a bunch of your own contingency plans for you and your family. That's the goal of this book. It is a workbook. There's annexes in the back or appendixes. You fill in the sheets. I would recommend you photocopy them and then fill them in and create a series of your own contingency plans. That's the goal of the book. And I am developing a web app. I'm almost done. Tamara, you're one of my beta testers now. We got you signed up. And before everyone freaks out, oh, the power is going to go out. No, you're going to go through the process, create your plans, and then you're going to print them, because you can print them into a PDF and put them in a binder. And so if that event happens, you just activate your plan. That's the goal, right? Now, I'm more than happy. I think you'll be more than set if you buy the book. And I haven't released the web app yet, but in the future, I'm going to release it. So you've got two options. And the app actually refers to the book, which chapters in the book that you should be on. And so if you want to read more, get more background, you can go in and read the chapter in the book and then have a better understanding of what the app is doing. So yeah.
This is great. You know, it's really funny because, I mean, all of us go to work, or most of us anyways, go to work in jobs where we have to have emergency plans, but like then they have to be updated every 6 months or yearly. For most places, especially in the oil industry and oil and gas industry, anything like that. But you're right. We really don't do that in our personal lives.
No,
I don't know.
No.
I don't know. I know very few people that actually do stuff like that in their personal lives. So if anything, it's just a great exercise, even just to think about what you're going to have to do,
Chris, I think you were muted there for a minute.
I was muted. What year was the Texas ice storms? There was people dying after 3 days in their apartments because they had no clue how to survive. What are your thoughts on the natural gas system? If a guy has a generator,
you brought up you reminded me of something. Is we always hear about 72 hours, the 72 hours, and if people want to know, where does the 72 hours come from? Well, think about this. The government has to declare an emergency, then they have to activate their emergency management organization. Those people have to all assemble, try to figure out what's going on, develop a plan, go through their operational planning process, and then deploy volunteers and resources to those affected areas. So you have a responsibility to get yourself in a safe place and recovered, or at least until the amount of time where emergency management or the authorities can get to you and help you. So this is what the public never really has to think about, is that you have a responsibility to yourself and to the people that are trying to get and rescue you, which is, it's a partnership. It's not like it's your job to save me. It's a partnership, right? But how do you do that if no one's ever taught you how to do that effectively? And what's unfortunate to me is people fall into the trap of they treat it gear first. I got to buy this Gucci kit first. I got to buy the thing first that I saw on the gear review on the YouTube channel. Those things are really important. They are. I think you'd be crazy if you didn't at least have some sort of backup electricity in your home. If you don't have that, I would say that's at the top of your list to make sure that you get that, because it's going to apply in all emergencies, except so much for civil unrest. And even there's a really good case to be made. Food, water, shelter, those are the basics. I mean, we're getting into Maslow's hierarchy of needs kind of thing when you're talking food, water, shelter. But at the end of the day, what my method is, or what we would do in the military, is I do a threat matrix first, and I score the threats that are most likely and most dangerous. Okay, so let me break that down for you, because you can have something that's not likely. Okay, so I live in Ontario. You guys are out west. Is it likely you're going to get a volcano? No. But if you did, it's highly dangerous. Okay, so you need those two things to assess whether or not something is truly dangerous. So it could be highly likely, like we live in Ontario, where it's highly likely to get a snowstorm. But is it really dangerous for Canadians? Not necessarily. Okay, but what you just said, Chris, with Texans, okay, in Texas, not very likely, but highly dangerous. But now I think people would go, well, it's at least medium likely, and it's very dangerous to me. Now, the third question, if you get a high score and a high score, the next question is, could this thing force me out of my home in the first 48 hours? So if the answer is yes, yes, and yes, that is the plan that you need to focus on. Okay. My threat assessment where I live revealed my number one threat is home invasion in my area where I live. So my number one contingency plan is for home invasion. Okay. And then I go down the list. And so what I do is I get you to go through the book, through the threat matrix, score all of them. And if you get a score, a high enough number, what I'm saying is now go through the rest of the process and do individual plans for those individual high scored threats. There's no one size fits all. Okay. There's no such thing as a one size fits all. You've got to assess what the threat is. And then we go into something called intelligence preparation of the environment. And that's where I look at the environment around me, and I don't consider what the emergency is. I just look at the true state of it. So for example, behind me, I have a big water retention pond. Down the street, I've got a bridge. Okay. I'm just looking at the terrain around me, because they're going to mean different things to me if I lose them. Right now, I got to know that they're there. And then I have to ask myself, what happens under stress? What happens to that water retention pond under stress if it gives way or if it overflows? What happens if I lose the bridge at the end of my street? Right? And this is what the IPE is aiming to do. Now, the good thing is you do your threat assessment, you do your IPE, and then you don't have to do those again, because both of those things apply to the rest of the process you go through for building your contingency plans. Now, you'll go through courses of action. You'll always pick one of three, and you score them objectively. And the three courses of action are always the same: stay, prepare to leave, and bug out. That's all you got in a domestic emergency. That's it. But you should go through and score those and pick, which is the right course of action I should follow in this particular threat, and what's my backup. Okay. And so you do that, and then you get to the really fun part. And this is my favorite part, the war game, because this is what husbands and wives do all the time, right? Or you do with your kids. You get to take turns. You set up the scenario, and you say, okay, at this time, we've decided we're going to leave. We're going to bug out. Okay. All of our triggers that we identified, they've all given us a green light. Time to get ready and leave. Okay. So that's the first thing. So what do we do? Okay. Tom is going to, let's say, a civil unrest scenario, big civil unrest. Okay. First thing, Tom's responsibility is to go to the pre-identified kit list that he already has in his plan, grabs it all, starts putting it in the car. But what if Tom notices down the street, there's a big mob walking towards their place, and they look like they're looting? Okay. So what? Okay. What does that tell me? That tells me, okay, and let me back up a little bit. I'm packing the car, and Joanna is in the house. She's dealing with packing food, packing clothes, dealing with the dog, dealing with the kids, doing all that stuff. Well, now all of a sudden, I see this horde of people coming down the street. Now I need to, that's my so what. My so what is, okay, Joanna, you now need to get up into the window and provide overwatch for me while I'm packing the car. Okay. So you go through the whole war game piece, which is the good turn. This is my turn. Then the devil's advocate gets to go. You argue, and somebody poke holes in your plan or tells you what's going to screw this whole thing up for you. And then you get the last turn and says, okay, if that happens, well, this is my response. And so what you do is you do the turn taking, the war game. You literally, I get a turn, a counter turn, and a counter turn. And then you add up that list of all the things. What you've done is you've identified triggers and decisions. Now you have a list of triggers and decisions. And you do that from the time you leave your house to the time you get to your final destination. And then you start to go into your sustainment. So this is really what the book is trying to teach. It can be fun. It can be difficult. But if you do it one time, you get through one planning cycle, everything else after that will be a breeze. It'll actually be fun. Because now the goal in the war game is to screw each other over and write it all down, right? This is what husbands and wives do all the time. Well, if you ain't going to take out the garbage, well, then I ain't going to cook anymore, right?
Right.
Well, if you ain't going to cook, well, then I'm going to spend your money and buy it. So, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, we do that. This is what it's all about, right? So I'm trying to get people to make deductions about what they have to do, not invent it. Go through the steps of what can happen. You know, Chris, you've been driving truck for forever. Mm-hmm. You have a bunch of sort of SOPs when things happen. You go through your SOPs. That's just an emergency plan that you have. It's a checklist that you're going through, you're following. And you've got the experience to back it up and see it through and modify that plan, right? And so, yeah.
You hear it click when you're driving down the highway and you start planning out in your head, what could that have been? Mm-hmm. Is that, and how am I going to fix it? I could, toolbox in the truck. I have a water supply in the truck. I can basically self-survive in Big Red for minimally a week, probably, I guess, just with what I'm set up on right now. But you never know when a snowstorm's going to catch you in a parking lot, when you're going to be stranded on a highway. And I was going to mention this point earlier. We live in a society right now where there's a certain population right now that don't even know how to change a tire on a car.
That's true.
Yeah.
All CAA.
Yeah. I had my daughter out with me. We were at the land the last 3 visits I was with her, and we were building like shelters and using matches. Somebody just asked if I had matches. I'm like, yeah, I got matches. I got flints. I've got magnifying glass. I got it all, right? But the idea is to get my daughter involved in that and to get interested. And she was just eating it up.
Oh, cool.
Matches, teaching her matches. Like this is fun stuff for kids. Okay, it's what I was brought up on, was building forts and shelters and you name it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
Me too.
yeah, and so
I mean, most of our kids can't even read a map. Like
I know,
like
I know.
Dwayne and I have made it a habit to start buying maps when we're in new places and we've got stacks of them now. Especially, driving back across the country many times as we have. And if we ever lost the internet, I mean, you need to know how to read a map.
Yeah. And the important thing to realize, there's a saying in the army, is that the best laid plans never survive first contact with the enemy. Okay. But here's the thing that's really important. And I spend my first chapter talking about fear, the physiological effect of fear on the human body. Okay. And if you really want to know what I'm talking about, for the viewers, think back to a time in your life where, in an emergency, you were trying to dial 911 and it was difficult for you to even hit the buttons. Okay. And by the way, that's been studied extensively. When your heart rate starts to go above 115 beats per minute from fear, I'm not talking cardiovascular or a treadmill. I'm talking about, cortisol and adrenaline. You've got 10 seconds before you start losing fine motor control. Okay. After the fine motor control, your heart rate's still going up. Now you're starting to lose gross motor control. This is now when you're getting into a lot of cognitive impairment. Okay. So how in the world are you expected to start functioning if you've never come up with a plan and you're terrified? And half your house just got wiped out in a tornado. And now you're like, I'm terrified. I'm glad to be alive, but what do I do now? Right. So the idea is, another thing we say in the military is that we always fall back on our training. We fall back on the lowest common denominator, the lowest level. You rise to the level of your training. And so when you have a plan, it's not, and I always talk about this because I used to be a big Star Trek fan. You got the Enterprise, it's surrounded by all these enemy ships, your shields are gone, your phasers are gone, and all of a sudden, bang, you come up with the Picard maneuver and outsmart everybody and save the day. Well, I'm sorry, but that's not reality. That's not how it's done in real life, and that's not how an army commander does it. An army commander goes onto the battlefield and he's already analyzed everything that the enemy can do to him. And he's already figured out what is most dangerous and what is most likely that enemy is going to do to me. And that's what I'm going to plan my strategy based around. And so when they go into battle, when a commander goes into battle, what they're doing is they're actually they're fighting from a pre-scripted checklist. It's like, if the enemy does this because I've already thought about it, then I'm going to do that. But if he does this instead, well, I've already determined that my response will be this, right? And we have something called an attack guidance matrix or a decision support template. And what we do is, and everybody in the chain knows that, so that if the commander does get killed on the battlefield, the next guy takes over and he fights off of that piece of paper and he makes the same decisions. It's predetermined decisions. So you're not trying to make a strategy in the middle of a life-threatening battle.
On the fly. Yeah, on the fly.
On the fly. Yeah.
Even like you said, just the mental exercise of going through it. I mean, I find and this doesn't compare by any means, but I know for myself, I don't prepare notes usually when I speak, but just thinking about going, like, sort of a visualization or thinking it all through helps me at that time, because even in a situation like that, you do get nervous. There's, even unconsciously you get nervous. Like, I don't feel like I get nervous speaking in front of people, but I still get a dry mouth, or you still get, a little bit anxious. And so just the thought process of just thinking through it beforehand is a game changer. And that's before you actually sit down with a pen and paper and start writing it out, and actually creating a concrete plan.
Yes.
Have you thought about taking this and because I would take a course for this. Have you thought about putting this into like a course format for online and in-person classes? Because I would definitely sign up for that.
Yeah. So on the website right now, the URL is attached under my name. I do have a box in there if people want to sign up to a course. Like if you've got a group of at least 10 people, and you can find a facility, then I'll come and do a day worth of training with the goal of, you walk out of there with at least one contingency plan for your highest threat, for you and your family. So yeah, I'm willing to do that. And I've already started to put the material together. I have a phone call tomorrow. There's a group potentially that's going to want me to come to Ottawa, of all places, in
great.
September. To
You
do
can't
this,
stay away
right?
from that place.
We've
I
been
know.
there. It's a nice city.
Yeah.
We're familiar with
It's funny because I tried to do a little tiny piece of this with Pat King. He was like, yeah. And then he kind of looked at me, goes, "Who are you?" And then he lost interest right away and walked out of the room and never did anything that him and I planned.
Right.
I get it, but it's fine with me. But I think that what I'm trying to give people is not fear. You don't have to be afraid. If my roof disappears on my house after a tornado, I'm going to be scared whether I got a plan or not.
Right.
But the issue is, do I have confidence that I have a plan? Or am I standing there going, why didn't I plan? Why didn't I make a plan for this? Yeah. And that's a big, big difference. I mean, I want to come from a place of confidence. I don't want to come from a place of fear when I'm doing this. And I want to share this plan with my family. I do a plan, and I've had people say, well, my kids will never go for this. My adult kids won't go for this and do it. I say, make your own plan, factor them in it. And when the event kicks off, just say, I've already considered it all. Just get here and we'll take care of you. And then they're going to be like, yeah, she wasn't crazy or he wasn't crazy. Mm. And I've heard that scenario on a number of times. Like family members don't want to support it.
And people become so entitled in this country right now that I see this all the time. When we're on the farm here, I think I'm getting low on beef now, but we usually buy a half a cow cut and wrapped. Mm-hmm. We got a pig coming next week, cut and wrapped. We have a cold storage building that has cans and we're set on the farm here for quite a while. But what'll happen when a crisis happens in a major city, those people will then start moving outwards, right? Mm-hmm. Survival mode. And then
So chapter 12 of the book, I talk a lot about the mental piece of this. And I ask the readers to really reflect on the level of violence that they're going to be comfortable with.
Right.
Okay. And I debated whether or not to put that into the book, but I thought that it was too vital of a chapter to put in there. I know what I'm going to do, but I am asking the reader to do some navel gazing and sit there and really think about what are the conditions that I'm actually going to use force or even deadly force in a natural disaster or an emergency, because I think this is important. You have to, I studied, combatives. I ran a Krav Maga club for a while. I taught stuff from Gavin de Becker's book, The Gift of Fear. It's an amazing book. Everyone should read it. But the one thing I never let my female students do was train with other females. I never let that. I only let them train with men, because a woman's natural predator is not another woman. It's a man. And a man's predator, by the way, is a man. Right. And so I never let my female students train with women, because that's not who they're going to be fighting. They're not going to be defending their lives against other women. They're going to be defending against a man. So if they come into my club and they start throwing the guys all over, they're going to get this false sense of security and think that they can just walk up and do, some Charlize Theron move or something on some guy out on the street, and she's going to get rudely waken up. Right. And so I'm trying to get people to really, really think about the level of violence that they may or may not have to bring forward against somebody coming into their home to steal resources from them and their family. In my point of view, when during the COVID days, I mean, I was fully prepared. And my concern was if it started to get really bad, that people were going to be going door to door doing B&Es looking for food. And my thought was, I'm going to have a goodie bag. And I'm basically going to give that bag of food, because I'm not really interested in killing a father or a mother who are just trying to feed their kids.
Right.
And I know some people are comfortable with that. I'm not. However, I'll give you the bag of food, and it comes with a very stern warning. I don't want to see you come back here. This is just to get you on your way. Don't come back. There won't be another bag for you, and it's going to go bad for you. I've already made my decisions about the level of violence that I will bring on anybody who comes through my door who is uninvited when my family's in the house. That decision is already made. I don't have to ruminate about it when somebody's trying to kick in my front door. That decision was made years ago for me. And so when I'm terrified, again, I don't want to be looking for the Picard maneuver and think that I'm going to come up with some way. I've already decided. I already know what I'm going to do. I already know how I'm going to react if somebody comes through my front door. Why? Because my threat assessment tells me that home invasion is my number one threat. And so I've already gotten comfortable with the level of violence I'm willing to bring. And I already have my plan for what I'm going to do. And I've already taken steps to fortify my doors and windows.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about this now.
Yeah, right.
I have a little black dog that sleeps at the foot of the bed, and if somebody even drives near the yard in the middle of the night, we're on a desolate part of the country right now. But if somebody enters the yard, security systems fires up, and we know that somebody's coming. And
they're good.
When it comes to the keyboard warriors on the internet, you're not going to be able to type your way out of a dangerous scenario here. So we're seeing dynamics change, and I hope nothing ever happens like that. But we are getting more volatile as a world right now. We've been away from world conflicts, and it seems like we're getting closer and closer every day. So it doesn't hurt to be prepared.
Yes, I would like to take this. Go ahead, Tamara.
I was just going to say exactly, because I mean, no one's coming to save you. I mean, Chris, you're a perfect example. You are 25 minutes north of Swift Current. So, I mean, if you have an emergency at your house and you phone the police, you know it's going to be a minimum of 25 minutes for them to get there. And that's if they're not all tied up on other business that are happening, other calls. So, I mean, time is of the essence. And Canada is so very rural. Like a lot of our communities and people are very rural people. So, I mean, this is such an important tool for them to have. I'm going to order mine as soon as I get up.
I lost a few years ago in Alberta to a home invasion with an armed intruder, and Sean lost his life, unfortunately. But what he was able to do was counter the attacker and mortally wound him to the point where he saved his family. And that was evident when that happened, and he gave his life to protect his family, and he didn't make it to the hospital, unfortunately, but I think about him all the time. We are growing up. You said that 25 minutes away from the nearest detachment or a hospital or that. My in a story I had as a kid there, I was obviously in trouble a lot as a young one, and I put my parents through the mill quite a bit. But I remember getting very cocky with my father once and saying, I'll call Social Security or social services if you use that belt on my rear end. And he handed me the phone and he said, dial it. You have 25 minutes before the police get here. Until that time, your ass is mine. And I hung the phone up and took my licking, and I never got a licking that I didn't deserve, of course, growing up. And that's another aspect of what's missing in today's youth. But
we had the best parents. I'm so glad I was born in the 70s, honestly.
Yeah. Because David Redman always talks about, there used to be helicopter parents, and he says now they're bulldozer parents. Which is basically the parent is going to go after anybody who makes their child's life uncomfortable.
Right.
100%. Yes.
And it's like, ooh, like that's not good.
My father had a chunk of baseboard growing up because he's like, I am not going to hurt my hand kicking your ass. So he would just use a piece of baseboard. That hurt very much so.
We had the wooden spoon.
Well,
I
yeah.
got the wooden spoon. Yeah,
Yeah.
I got the wooden spoon and a bunch of other things, and I got strapped twice in elementary school.
Yeah, could you imagine that happening now?
Oh my God!
Teachers would be, hauled out with criminal charges now, but that was something that more,
Yeah, I got it twice and suspended, always for fighting. But yeah, like it's that was the time, right? Like, but the one thing I wanted to say with this, when you get into this mindset, this mentality, you feel confident that you can take care of yourself, like you really do. But I remember when I left the army and I was back in school full time. I've studied for years, and there's a great book on my desk too. Stop Teaching Our Kids to Kill. It's about active shooters, school shooters, that type of thing. And I did training years ago with a guy in Tabor, Alberta, named Kevin Cameron, doing his active shooter threat assessment course. Amazing, really well done, so worth it. And I think when I got into school, I mean, you combine my life as a child, you combine my military training, you combine all, the interests that I have. I got into school full time, and certain times of the year, I was concerned that there was going to be an active shooter. So, every time for 4 years I went to class, I was always picking the most optimal seat that I could pick because I just didn't know, and when I go to the mall, I don't go to the mall and have a good time with my family. I'm the bulldog that I'm just there watching the family. They're doing the shopping. But that's not what I want people to do. I want people to, Tamara, you saw it. We were in Ottawa and that goofball that was bugging you about smoking out front of the building. That's what I'm looking for. That's the way I'm wired. I don't want people to be like me. I don't want that level of mindset. But that's what I am now. Too bad, so sad. But like another example, I have a medically compromised child. And so every time I was posted by the military to a new city, I would have to get out the map and start looking for hospitals, start looking for train tracks, and start looking at the routes from the areas I was interested in living all the way to the hospital. Because I needed to make sure that at a moment's notice, I could get my kid to the hospital. Right. Mm-hmm. So I had to figure out and analyze all my high-speed routes from my home or the area I was interested to the hospital. And that's hard because, the nice areas, they're more expensive, so, yes. But you sort of get to that way of thinking. And I actually put a chapter in the book. I did a whole case study in the book. I took it out because I thought maybe I'll do this later in the future. But I use this entire same process, and I've had many conversations because, like, I've got a master's degree in business, and I've had many officers and said we could take the whole operational planning process and modify it for businesses to deal with shocks to the business. What happens when you can't get fuel? What happens when your supply chains run out? What happens when you have a reputational hit or some other thing, right? So I could apply this whole entire process to my company. It doesn't have to be about war fighting or domestic emergencies. It's a process. Mm-hmm. It's not a menu. It's not so you could apply the whole thing. And I thought about actually doing a sequel to this for businesses. So
it's a good idea.
Maybe someday. Yeah, maybe someday.
Well, Tom.
Well, I definitely want to sign up for that course if you ever get it going. You have and can you speak about? I know that you're hoping to put a big event together. I think in 2027. So that's sort of a goal that you're working on now, a big expo. So do you want to talk about that a little bit and how people can get involved or help? Or
I'm looking to do it in Red Deer at the Westerner. This is where I'd like to do it. So I've talked to a number of people about putting this on. And I've started to build my team for people to try to work. And I've been, I've discussed it with Nate from Canadian Prepper, he's indicated that he's interested. Redmond he said he'd be a speaker. I'm hoping to get one of our many lawyer friends to property rights and self-defense during an emergency, or a natural emergency or declaration of an emergency or whatever. I know myself, I'll speak about the book. I'll probably talk about the website, and I'm going to have a bunch of vendors there that are going to. So it's an expo about emergency planning and preparedness, but also homesteading. Okay, so just remember two things. Homesteading is not the same as prepping. Okay, prepping is based on, there's an element of fear in prepping, but homesteading is about a way of life. Like Chris is not a prepper, he's a homesteader. Okay, right. And there's another fancy name for that. It's called farmer. Okay, so anyway, so this is and so this is what I'm trying to do, is put on a big giant planning and preparedness and homesteading expo in Red Deer, and I'm thinking November this year. I know that the West kind of shuts down for the summer, so you'll get no participation. And I also know that in October, Alberta's running into a referendum. And so I don't want to overlap or confuse those two things. And I don't want to send the signal to anyone that, hey, you got to get ready because the referendum's coming and it's going to devolve. I don't want to do that to people. I don't want to be a fearmonger. So this is where I'm looking at doing the 2-day expo, having speakers. Tracy Wilson said she would participate from the CCFR.
Super bien.
Yeah, and I'm hoping I'll get Amanda Lynn Mayhew. She's a hunter. She has her own TV show, her own YouTube channel. I talk to her occasionally. So I'm trying to get a really good mixed bag of people. I think maybe Jeff and Rose from Gridlessness. They're out in BC. Cabin River Outdoors, I haven't asked him. Go ahead.
Did you reach out to Luke from the Outdoor Boys yet? Because that would be he'd be a great guest.
He'd be great. Me and my daughter for years we've been watching him for years. We refer to him as the crazy guy. After he dumped one of his kids at night out of the boat into the Florida Everglades, we're like, that guy's kind of crazy, and I'm surprised hasn't lost one of them. But he's great. And then I text sometimes with Sean James. He's here in Northern Ontario. He's got an amazing. It's one of my favorite channels. The Bearded Woodsman is another friend of mine. He's got a big YouTube channel. So there's people out there that are doing these different interesting things. But yeah, there's a lot of talented people out there with a lot of knowledge to share that could come and be a part of this expo. But what I don't want to do is this. Okay, this is not a doomsday prepper event. This isn't where it's Oh, Carla's a great name. I spoke to her a few weeks ago. She'd be a great one to talk to. 100%. And so yeah, it's not about politics. It's not terrifying doomsday prepping. It's for everybody. I don't care what your politics are. What I want is for you, if you're a young person with a family to retired senior citizen, just come out and participate. And learn what you can, buy some gear. But make connections, because a big part of this, and I've always said this, is that you don't there's a reason that wolves travel in packs, and it's because lone wolves don't survive. They'll get picked off. And so my greatest hope is that people will get this book and they'll form a group, they'll form a community. And I actually have a case study in the book. I've got several case studies. I would like for people to create clubs or groups and then start doing their planning together. That I would love to see happen, because if there is an event, you just activate your plan and your community comes together and you're stronger as a pack. And everybody thrives in that case. And then maybe you can reach out and start helping other people that unfortunately didn't do what they needed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And there will definitely be a lot of that.
Yeah.
Well,
I
we
mean,
watched a Canadian Prepper's show today where he was buying some property in Alberta here, actually. And I made a joke to Dwayne because, of course, we should be, especially with our experience, we should be way more prepared. But we're not, because our lives have been crazy. But I said, if he's buying property in Alberta, then I want to be that guy's neighbor.
Yes. Yeah, you do. And he's got some amazing stuff. And because of the tariffs, he shut down his store.
Yes.
It's unfortunate. And the reason, like, he'd been talking about it for quite some time, but he shut down his online store. He shut down his warehouse. He had 9 employees. And one of them, by the way, is a big fan of yours, Tamara and Chris. Read all of our books, except yours, Chris, because you haven't read it. You haven't written it yet.
Still waiting on that bestseller, Chris.
Still waiting on it.
You want to help me on that? I've got somebody to help, but just haven't at the time. There's a story there. It's coming.
There's a story. Yeah. Like
After
when you gave me COVID. Yeah. No, but I think build the community, and you don't have to be afraid. You just have to make a plan and then come together as a group. Mm-hmm. But I'll give one little piece of advice with this. If you're going to pick your group, pick a weekend and go camping with everybody.
Yes.
Go camping with everyone.
Yes.
For a week,
or take them on
weekend.
A convoy. Or take them on a convoy, and then then you'll figure it out.
Yeah, test them out, and figure out their personalities, and figure out who's a doer and who's a talker.
Well, I'm thankful that
not only that.
Sorry,
Chris. I just want to add not only that, Tom, but everybody has different skill sets. Like everyone has different talents. So. And that's what we found out with the convoy, is identifying who was good at doing what and what we needed, what skill sets we needed, and putting the proper people in place.
Yes. And again, to be truthful with that, none of us had legal command authority to tell anyone else what to do. Okay, and this is a big piece that like I came to terms with immediately when I got there. Is like, all I have is my influence. This is all people skill stuff. I've only got my influence. I can't give orders here, right? And so you just have to hope that what you're trying to do makes sense, and people want to listen to you, and because you're logical, you're sound. And again, if you can always be safe and responsible, people gravitate towards that. Mm-hmm. Okay, and if you want to be radical, well, then you kind of get pushed out on your own. Okay, so we experienced a lot of that, right? Mm-hmm. And so, fighting off the extreme sort of behaviors and the extreme thoughts. And that's why during the convoy, I always said, look, we don't have any emergencies. The only people around here that have emergencies are the police, ambulance, and fire. We've got all the time in the world. Take a deep breath. Let's think this through. And that became my mantra. I said it, stop panicking. Like I said that to somebody at least once a day.
Oh my gosh.
And so this is where I think, pick your group, go camping, see who you got, and see who socially is going to be that 1 in 10 that disrupts the group. Because then I would suggest that maybe, you're not suitable for the group. There's always that one person. Oh, yeah. And you hope it isn't you. Because if there isn't, it might be you.
Are you sure? Yeah, that's a good point. That's a very good point. If there isn't, it might be you. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I think that's one of the things that, and I spoke a lot about this during our little tour that we were just on, because if we learned one thing there for sure, and there was multiple things, but, we didn't need the government to run every single part of our lives. And we took it upon ourselves and basically had like a little mini self-government. So, people that picked up the garbage, people that were feeding hungry people, just see a need, fill a need kind of thing. And so we really showed that, as Canadians, we can take care of this stuff. We are not children that need to be looked after. We're quite capable of doing this. I mean, the government should just be getting back to what they should be doing and letting us take care of the rest. I mean, we did it far more efficiently in Ottawa than they ever did. The streets were never cleaner. There wasn't even cigarette butts on the ground. Like the homeless were fed. There was no overdose deaths in downtown Ottawa the whole time we were there, which if you've been to downtown Ottawa is shocking in and of itself.
Yeah.
Every time we witness it. Somebody ODing on the side of the highway.
Yeah. And the other thing is I know 2 instances myself where the truckers gave first aid, called an ambulance, triaged the person, gave them first aid, and made sure that they got, taken care of by the ambulance. That happened in 2 different occasions that I'm aware of. There's a lot of positive things that, unless Chris writes a book, nobody's ever going to know.
Man, and that was
right.
that was one of the things we were so proud of. We worked with law enforcement to alleviate all those emergency lanes all over the city. And I can tell you, I almost got into 3 physical altercations with 3 different protesters who refused to move their vehicle. They thought that they owned the intersection. And I thought, if an ambulance has to come down the street and rescue somebody from an emergency, I remember, I don't know if I've told the story or not before. I remember one of the cops, his name was Louis. Was it Louis?
Louis. Yep.
Oh,
Louis.
Yeah.
He was good cop. He was good cop. Sorry, upon Lee's bad cop.
With one guy on a street corner that had an intersection blocked. I turned around and I said, if you weren't standing here, I'd deck this son of a bit, And he smiled and turned his back, whistling, go do do do. Take the opportunity, obviously.
Nothing to see here.
He was feeling the same way I was.
Mm-hmm. That's how I met Joanna. In fact, 2 days ago we got our marriage license, so we're on the verge of picking a date. So I'm pretty stoked about that. Yeah, but you know how I met her?
News.
This is a true story. I actually met her on Twitter because she kept popping up on my feeds. I had just joined Twitter years ago, like over 4 years ago. I just joined Twitter. She popped up on my feed. And she had these weird initials. I'm like, DMD. I'm like, what the hell's that? And she's a dentist. I don't have a dentist. I had an anesthetist. I had nurses. I had carpenters, electricians. I had all the trades. And remember, this is just before the convoy. Right. This is when people like us were being told you can't get groceries, right? You can't participate in society. So I'm like, geez, I need a dentist, right? Especially for my son. And so I reached out to her and I tried to get a meeting with her, and that's the rest is history. So now we're just trying to pick a date, and I'm pretty excited about it. Yeah, I'm very excited.
She's an amazing lady, Tom. You're very lucky. I've met her a number of times.
She would have to be.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Right?
Well, that's breaking news, everyone. Congratulations, Tom. That's really exciting. I'm really happy for you. Yep. Yeah,
Thank you.
So,
yeah.
Okay. Wow.
I'm going to go continue subflooring or putting laminate flooring down in the room that I'm working at right now. And I wanted to finish that tonight. So pleasure spending the time with you guys and everybody else in the comment section. Thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Yes,
I'm going to try to head down and catch. I've got Dan Hartman's The Shot is playing here. The documentary is playing down at the Monarch Theater here tonight, so I'm going to try to get down there and get some
good
comments and reaction from some of the locals. So thanks a lot, Tom.
I saw it a few weeks ago. It's tough to watch, but I saw it a few weeks ago. Yeah.
I bet it is.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. And I'm so glad that we did this. Like I said, it's just funny that we have you on all the time. And so I was like, well, why don't we have him come on and talk about himself? You've been really, really busy. So I hope you sell some books tonight. I know I'm definitely heading to Amazon right now, and I'll be picking up your newest book this evening for sure.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
let us know if you decide to put on any classes online or in person. I think that's definitely something I'd be interested in doing.
Yeah, there's a plan in the works for that. Definitely. Absolutely.
Good to hear it.
It's more fun in person.
Yeah, of course it is.
Yeah.
Okay, well, everyone, thank you so much for joining us tonight on House Arrest, and thank you to Chris for covering while I was gone for the last 2 weeks.
My pleasure.
Really appreciated that.
Thanks to Tash.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks to Tash. Always her back. She's
something I wanted to mention. If you look up in the corner up there, you'll see this little logo that Tasha designed. That is pretty cool. It's big red, obviously, with the wheel lock on it. So amazing. I love that. That looks so cool. Hats off there, Tasha.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. See, we're getting there. We're not polished, but we're gonna slowly get there. About the time we're done House Arrest, we'll have this show perfect and down to an art.
You betcha.
So,
Have a great night,
all right,
everyone.
sounds good. Have a great week, everyone, and we will see you next week. I'm not sure what our plan is, but the week after that, or the first week in April, we have the lovely Carrie Sakamoto joining us. So I'm looking forward to that one. Have a great week, and we will see you next Thursday, everyone. Thanks a lot, Tom. Thanks, Tasha. Bye, Chris.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.